Hi guys, so Dominic Raab appeared on Sky News to talk about Sinn Féin's victory over the DUP. Now, the largest unionist party, the DUP, have refused to go into the executive with Sinn Féin unless the Northern Ireland Protocol is fixed, whatever that means. They have been calling for Article 16 to be triggered by the UK government, and Johnson & Co have ignored those calls. Here Raab encourages all parties to work together, but he fails to understand that one party is standing in the way of the executive doing its job, and his own government have not helped by criticising the deal that they signed. Here Raab is challenged by Sophie Ridge on that very position.
Sinn Féin winning that historic victory, sending their first minister to the Northern Ireland Assembly. What's your reaction?
Well, look, there is clearly some change in Northern Ireland. I think above all, what we want to see as the UK government is some stability. I think for the people of Northern Ireland, whichever way they voted, we want to see an executive formed, the parties to come together to provide the people of Northern Ireland with that stability. I think it's equally clear that that stability is being put at risk, imperilled, if you like, by the problems with the Northern Ireland Protocol. That's something that affects communities across the board. And it's clear from the dynamic we now see that we won't get to that position of stability until and unless it's fixed. And so we're focused on those two elements, bringing the parties together, stability, but also unlocking the problems with the Northern Ireland Protocol.
Unlocking the problems with the Northern Ireland Protocol. You sound as if this is something that you've got no control over. This Northern Ireland Protocol was what you imposed.
Well, if it had been implemented with the kind of flexibility, goodwill, and with the business interests of communities across Northern Ireland, and it hadn't been used, frankly, as a political device in the way that it has, I don't think we'd have the same level of problems. But
What the heck? A political device being used as a political device. The EU, obviously he's talking about the EU here, not the British government. There's complete projection here. The EU did not threaten to trigger Article 16 on a daily basis. The EU did not say we're going to tear up the protocol. The EU did not say we're going to break international law in a limited and specific way. The UK government did these things. You agreed to this. You signed up to it. You have to implement it. Now, I've said before, if there were real problems with the protocol, then present these problems. Let's analyse these problems and see if they are real. And I've been asking, and I've been saying this for over a year now, what are these problems? Let's have a look at the problems and see if they can be fixed. But we never hear about these problems. When he also talked here about the business community in Northern Ireland reached out to the EU and said, look, we have problems. Of course, the protocol is not perfect. I've never said the protocol is perfect, and I've yet to hear anyone say the protocol is perfect. But it mitigates against Brexit. It undoes some of the damage of Brexit. Many businesses in Great Britain would prefer to have something like the protocol. Unfortunately, they can't have that. Northern Ireland is in a privileged position. But the business community in Northern Ireland reached out to the EU and asked for help. Said, is there some way that you can streamline processes within the protocol? Is there some tweaking that can take place? We're not expecting you to throw it out, but we want some help. The EU came back with proposals, and the response from the business community in Northern Ireland was, wow, this is more than we had actually expected. So from the business community's point of view, the protocol is undoing the damage of Brexit. That's the most it can do. The people who have a problem with the protocol are the likes of the DUP and Brexiteers in Great Britain.
The point of discussing that has passed. We must see it now fixed. The government is committed to fixing it. And we won't get the stability that I talked about, the political stability. Yeah. And that's clear as a result of the outcome of the elections in Northern Ireland.
It's very clear, isn't it? The DUP leader has said that effectively they are not they'll collapse power sharing. They won't form part of the executive until the UK government deals with the protocol. This is what Jeffrey Donaldson said. The protocol is harming our political process. It is undermining political stability. I made clear during this election that the government needs to sort that out, and until they do, I will not be nominating a minister to the executive. I just want to sort of pause and reflect on how serious that is. You know, the executive can't function otherwise. We're in the middle of a cost of living crisis.
Well, there hasn't been an executive for some time, as you know, Sophie. So
Yeah, because the DUP pulled out.
So we want to see an executive up and running. We want to see the parties come together in the kind of cooperation that can make that happen.
So
and
will
we
you
want
look
to
at
see,
the protocol in the Queen's speech? I just want to get a bit of a timeline on this. The Queen's speech next week, is the protocol going to be looked at then?
Well, you know that I can't reveal details of the Queen's speech in advance.
Well, that's not the first time details have been released to the media, and I understand he's not going to do that. But it doesn't seem to be the case that any legislation to undo parts of the protocol will be part of the Queen's speech. So I don't think the UK government is going to undo parts of the protocol. They haven't done anything about it up to this stage, so I don't see them doing anything now. What they could do is they could strong-arm the DUP. They have influence over the DUP. What is that influence? They could say, well, okay, if you're not willing to form an executive, then we'll take power back to Westminster. We'll rule directly from Westminster. And who's going to suffer the consequences of that? Well, the people of Northern Ireland, because it's better to have decisions over the cost of living crisis or the NHS taken in Northern Ireland, not taken from Westminster. So the people of Northern Ireland are going to suffer the consequences of that, and they're going to turn around and they're going to punish who was responsible for this? The DUP. So the DUP, who are not, a very clever group of individuals, they campaigned for Brexit, even though people told them that would be a bad idea for, you're a unionist party, bad idea voting for Brexit, campaigning for Brexit, but they ignored that. Then they threw their support behind Boris Johnson. People told them that'd be a bad idea as well, but they went with that. If power is returned to Westminster, the decisions are made in Westminster, this is bad for Northern Ireland. Especially as many parties saw their vote share go up because of the cost of living crisis. Many people voted for Sinn Féin because of the cost of living crisis, not on the constitutional issues. Many people voted for the Alliance Party in Northern Ireland because of the cost of living crisis, because they wanted these parties to deal with this problem. And if the DUP throw their toys out of the pram because they can't get their way on the protocol, which, it was not the principal issue people were voting on, then we have to rely on the UK government to strong-arm them into agreeing to go into government with Sinn Féin. Now, they could, as I said, threaten to take power back into Westminster. They could rule from Westminster. They could talk about imposing policies that would be uncomfortable for the DUP from Westminster. That could strong-arm them into it. But as we've seen here, Jeffrey Donaldson says he's not going to go into an executive if the protocol is not fixed. The UK government could also get away around this by stop criticising the bloody protocol. Say that it is working. Call the DUP's bluff on this. Say, okay, give us some examples of how it's not working. And then we'll lodge this with the EU and see about fixing it. Call them out on it. But they don't want to do that because they have to keep the idiot Brexiteers within their party and their support base happy. Or angry, as the case may be. The UK government could say to the DUP, okay, we're going to fix these problems. These problems have been fixed. There. Trade, but trade has changed. Well, that's, a consequence of Brexit. Well, you wanted your Brexit. This is the consequence of Brexit. They could respond in this way to the DUP. Say, we fixed the protocol. There you go. Most people in Northern Ireland would not be able to tell the difference. The DUP just want the protocol gone. They don't actually have an alternative to the protocol. They don't have a solution to the problems, obviously because they can't present any problems. If you don't have a problem, you can't have a solution. But they just want it gone. And they want the UK government to tear it up. But that doesn't seem to be what's going to happen. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think about all of this. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.